Hello and welcome to today's webinar on end of financial year processing. My name is Sarah Ward and I'll be going through the standard practice for end of financial year processing along with some of the reports you can run to check the health of your debtors, creditors and GST. A lot of what we're going through today will cover a standard end of month process, but getting that right is an important part of getting the end of year process correct. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that all debtor banking batches have been processed and that all available transactions have been posted to the ledgers. Now I'm going to use the graphical menus to open debtor banking batches by going to Sales and then Banking Batches. If you don't have the graphical menus, you can get to the same screen by going to Transactions, Debtor Receipts, Debtor Banking Batches. Now I'm just simply going to create a new banking batch, and yes, and I can see I've got these two unbatched transactions here. So I'm going to double click them to send them into the batch, and that's telling us it's going to deposit $6,275 into my debtors account. So now I'm going to lock the batch and mark it ready to post, and when we do that, it lights up this ready to post button and I'm going to post it to the GL. I'm going to say that I posted it and OK. And there we go. Now, the trick with debtor banking batches is that sometimes transactions can get tied up in historical batches and sit there unposted. And the way that you'll recognise that is if you've ever lost a debtor payment. So the debtor payment may be showing in the debtor account, but it hasn't yet been posted through to the general ledger and it doesn't show in the bank reconciliation. This is the place to come to look for those transactions. Once we've got that done, I'm going to next go over to the end of month tab and I'm going to go post ledgers to GL. This is where we post our debtor, creditor and stock sub-ledgers to the general ledger. Now the other way to get to that via the drop-down menus is Utilities, General Ledger Postings, Post Ledgers to GL. And it brings up the same screen. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my source ledger period is selected for all unposted. I want to make sure that I post everything that's sitting there unposted. If you run into problems with unposted transactions, it could be that you're running perhaps a selected period range and you're only ever posting in the current period, and then when you're entering transactions you may enter them prior to the current period and then they don't get picked up for posting. So I generally prefer to use either all prior to the current period if there's a reason for not posting in the current period, but generally I prefer all unposted. So what we can do now is just hit the preview button and this is going to go through and tell us what will be posted. So we'll just bring that up. Oh, it's opened up over there. So this is it here. It just runs through the journals that are going to be posted on the basis of the transactions that were there ready to post. Nothing too exciting. So at this point now, we're happy to proceed with a new GL post run. And I'm not going to print it, but you may wish to. And that's done. So now if we go preview GL post run, that brings us this message to say that there's no source transactions to post. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is post my foreign exchange. And I'm just going to go with a very generic post to GL. And we'll say that I've done that. Now, your foreign exchange process is likely to be different from what I've just done. And if you're not sure, get in touch with Focus and we'll help you to ensure that your foreign exchange process is correct. So what I'm going to do now, while we're still in this end of month tab, I'm going to look at this report here, Reconcile Receivables Account. Now, if you don't have the graphical menu, you obviously won't have this button, but we can easily add that report into one of these tabs here, or we can just add the graphical menus in for you. So if you do want those, just get in touch with a consultant or the support desk and we'll be able to help you out there. So Reconcile Receivables, it's popped up on my other screen, looks like this on the parameter screen. It is a retrospective report, so you can run it for prior periods and it will show you an accurate balance. The months that are showing as red here are the locked periods, and I've just left quite a lot of periods unlocked in my test system. So we'll just run it for March. And here it is. And we'll just bring it a bit closer. And we can see that we've got a $26,626 imbalance. Now at this point, I would be seriously investigating why I have such a significant imbalance. The receivables value is the sum of all the debtor accounts in the debtors ledger, and the account balance is the sum of the transactions in the GL control account for debtors or accounts receivable. So when everything's posted to the GL, these two figures should be identical and our out of balance amount should be zero. So at this point, you can do a little bit of investigating yourself, but you also may wish to give Focus a call and just get our advice on the best places to start looking and some tips and tricks we can give you for preventing this from happening. Now, I'm just using a demonstration database, so it doesn't have real financial information in it. So that is why my receivables don't reconcile. We've got exactly the same report here for the payables or the creditors. So we click on that. Of course, that comes up on my other screen. And here it is here. We can just hit the preview button and bring it a bit closer. And again, we have a large imbalance. And again, you would start investigating the causes of that. These possible causes of exceptions do allow you to click on them. So they do show any transactions that might be erroneous. So see, we have all of these direct postings. You wouldn't really expect direct postings, but there are sometimes suspended GL post runs. So when you click on them and there's nothing there, they don't open up. But if there is a balance, we'll show you the details of that. The next thing I'm going to check is what is called the GL trial balance tree. So that is up here under transactions in the drop down menu and down to general ledger, and we've got GL trial balance tree. What we're looking for here is for the trial balance to be balanced. So you can see here it is. This is quite a handy little screen. So if you do want to have a look at some retrospective trial balances, we can run them for prior periods and you can age them so that they can be run for a certain period. So sometimes there'll be tiny, tiny little imbalances that will show up as 0.00 and it will still tell us that it's out by that, but it's actually fine. So we can just change that to be any period. Oh, March 2018 is not looking great. If you do see an imbalance here, then let us know, because this is something that's quite critical to your business and the financial integrity of your system. So you can see at some point we have resolved the imbalance in this demonstration system. But if you do find an imbalance here, please get in touch with us. Some possible causes of imbalances in this area, there's generally two. The first one is if you have a general ledger account, and I'll just demonstrate this as I'm talking about it. In the GL tab, maintain chart of accounts. We go for a search. We just open any GL account. You can see here we've got a section, and this defines whether the account is a profit and loss account or a balance sheet account. Now, if you change the section of a GL account, what happens in the database is it changes what happens to those transactions at the end of the financial year. So when we roll the end of financial year, all of the balances in the profit and loss accounts get moved into retained earnings, and the balance sheet accounts, they just hold their balance going forward. So if you have a account that's set up as a balance sheet account and you have transactions against it, and then partway through the year you change it to profit and loss, the transactions that were posted while the GL account was a balance sheet account won't be treated properly for the retained earnings purposes, and that will cause an imbalance. And the other thing is, if you post transactions back into a financial year that's not the financial year immediately prior to the current one, so if you go back 2 years and post transactions, often it needs a little bit of a end of financial year process to be run again in the background, just to ensure that those transactions are treated correctly there. Once we're happy with all our checks, we can roll our end of period. So here it is here, roll end of period. We're going to go tick debtors, creditors, stock, GL, and because we're moving from March to April, we're also going to tick on end of financial year. So we're going to go roll, and we're going to say yes if there's anything there. Now this message is just telling me that the date says it isn't actually the end of financial year yet, which is fine. You'll generally do this on the 1st of April. Yes, and we're sure. And we'll do our foreign exchange there. Again, if you have foreign currency, you should have a process that's set up specifically for your site. And if you don't, or if you have any questions, just get in contact with us. And now it's popped up to say it wants us to look at the incoming financial year periods. So we'll click yes there. And this just tells us what the periods are going to be set up as. So what we have here is the current year. So this is the new financial year starting on the 1st of April 2019. Now you can edit these if you want to by double clicking on them, and that might be handy if they come up and they're incorrect. And the other thing you can do is say add in the next one, which is going to be starting on the 1st of April 2020. So you can just go through and add, and it picks up what they should be, just like that. But we won't worry about going all the way through that. We're happy with the start and stop dates of the periods and the names of the periods. So we're happy to exit from here. And that just will process through, and now it's telling us that we're in April. So this obviously doesn't stop you from entering transactions back into March, and that will be fine. You'll just have to make sure that when you do your post ledgers to GL, that your source ledgers period is set up in a way to ensure that those transactions get picked up. Now, the other thing that needs rolled is the fixed assets module. Now, you may not be aware that the fixed assets module is now free. So if you do have a fixed assets register that you wish to keep in EXO, you can just get in contact with us and we can show you how to run that. I'm going to open the asset register here. Over on my other screen, just bear with me. It looks like this. So the first thing to remember is that you do not have to post the fixed asset register or roll the fixed asset register at the same time as EXO business. This can be done completely separately. It can be done days or weeks after you have rolled your end of financial year in EXO business. Now this is set up this way so that you can complete your asset register for March before you roll into the new financial year. Now, it's important that you do that because any asset additions or disposals that you process prior to the end of March, if you've already rolled, then those transactions will post into April in the ledger, and we don't want that. We want them to stay in March. So you can leave your asset register open for as long as you need to in order to complete those asset transactions and get everything right. But once you're happy and everything's right, we make sure that we've got all our depreciation information here correct, and initials, and we just click calculate here. And I don't have very many assets, but it tells me the previous value, what the depreciation is for this month, or for the month of March, and what my new value is going to be. When I'm happy with that, I can post. You can choose to print a list. I'm not going to. And it just ticks through and does it, and that's that done. When you have finished all of your asset transactions for that financial year, and before you post anything for the new financial year, we need to post end of year rollover. So in my demonstration system, I don't have the ability to run end of year in fixed assets, but this option will be lit up. So we would date it for the 31st of March. Oh no, it does light up once I make that date correct. And we click run end of financial year, and it's as simple as that. So now fixed assets is in April 2019, and we're ready to go. One other thing that you may wish to reconcile is GST. Now, EXO doesn't provide any real good reporting around GST reconciliation for either invoice or payments basis, but that is something that we can help you with. I've got a few standard spreadsheets that I can give to you just to help you go through and ensure that your GST is at least close to what it needs to be. The biggest thing for you as you're processing GST is to make sure that the GST account balances here. So if we, for example, GST collected, this is GST on sales. If we were running a GST return for February and March, we would select our transactions for February and March for all of those. And some of the transactions here, the net total, that should match what's on your GST return for income, for GST on income. That's the first check that you should be doing. If you have only got one GST account for all of your GST transactions, then the sum of these transactions, both the GST on income and the GST on expenses, that should be net out to be what your payment or your refund is. It's really important that when you're processing GST that you use a different account to journal your GST payments made to the IRD or refunds from the IRD. That's really important because, as I said, that if you use one of these two accounts, then it's obviously going to change the balance in the GL, and it's not going to be transacted in the return, and you're not going to reconcile. Another thing to do is a really easy check is when you at the end of the financial year, you can go through all of your GST returns for the year and make sure that the payment made to the IRD or the refund received from the IRD matches what you've got in your ledger. There's a couple of reasons why the payment made to the IRD won't match what's in your ledger or what's on the return. First of all, if you make provisional tax payments with your GST and you don't separate the prov tax portion from the GST portion. Secondly, if you've paid any interest or penalties to the IRD and haven't split these. And finally, if you've received a refund from the IRD and they've held it back long enough for you to accrue some interest. Now, that's probably the least likely thing in the world to happen, but it has been known to occur. That's going to be the end of our webinar today. If you have any questions, just get in contact with the support desk. That's on 0800 00 1299, or you can contact it via email, which is support@focus.net.nz. Thank you very much for your time today, everyone, and I hope that you have a good day.